Welcome to part 2 of our interview with Dr. Anthony Browder.
The second Kushite tomb built at that site was for a man by the name of Karnak Temple. Karnak was a priest at the temple of Karnak. Karnak Temple on the east bank of the Nile River was then and still is today the largest temple complex ever built by humans on this planet. It's larger than the Vatican. It is so large you can take every church built in London and put them inside of this temple complex and still have room for 2 football fields.
Now, Doc, is it true that, if I read it correctly, I believe you had said this would be considered the oldest Masonic lodge in the world?
Well, Doc Ben makes those references because it's clear when we think of masonry in its literal sense, people who build with stone. The oldest examples of masonry have only been found in Kemet, i.e. the work of Imhotep, who designed and oversaw the construction of the Step Pyramid, which is the first building of stone in the world. It is still standing today, a 119-story skyscraper that is still standing today. So Europeans have traced their origins to Nile Valley. And so that's one of the other dilemmas, one of the other reasons why they're not willing to acknowledge the African origins of Nile Valley culture and civilization, because it's also the origins of masonry, religion, medicine, chemistry, philosophy, and astronomy. So white folk, racist white folk, are not willing to give up this false position of superiority that they claim for themselves. And so the other issue is, when we really understand what's at stake, when the African presence in Kemet has been accepted by society as a whole, it then exposes Europeans as liars. They have to do everything within their power to protect their lives. So I understand why they do what they do, and that understanding motivates me and my colleagues to do what we have done. That is, to go to Kemet, to do the research, to dig up the information, and to make that information available to everyone who wants to know. So the work that we're doing now in the 25th dynasty, in excavating and restoring these 2 tombs, we now have evidence which shows that the Kushites of the 25th dynasty were responsible for building more chapels and temples at Karnak Temple than any other kings in the history of Kemet. We've got the evidence. Our excavations have helped us to unearth the documentation to prove that. And specifically, we know that 2 Kushite kings, Shabaka and Taharka, were responsible for building most of the chapels and temples at Karnak Temple. We just found out 4 years ago at a conference we held in Luxor, Egypt, where we shared our research with the Egyptological community, that Kushites of the 25th dynasty were responsible for building the first pylon at Karnak Temple, which I have been taught was done by 26th dynasty kings. We now know that that's a lie. We also know that Taharka was responsible for building a colonnaded hall of 10 columns that are the largest columns ever built in Kemet. And of those 10 columns, only 1 is now standing. We've since found other evidence that shows what these Kushite kings have done. So the other significant thing about the site where we're working is that we're now reconstructing the story of Karnak Temple, the priest there. His tomb is approximately 230 feet long, 33 feet wide. It is comprised of 3 rooms. It is 20 feet underground. It is 4 times the size of King Tut's tomb. 4 times the size of King Tut's tomb. And it has text from the Book of the Hours. It has text from the Book of Coming Forth by Day. It has pyramid text. Pyramid text from the Old Kingdom is in this tomb from the late period, which means then that these Africans who came into Kemet were able to reach back, were able to engage in acts of Sankofa and reach back 2,000 years into their past and retrieve the best of the scientific, philosophical, and spiritual traditions of their ancestors, which they documented in this tomb, which we are now excavating and restoring. So I'm really pleased with what we've done, and the ACA Restoration Project is named in honor of my colleague, my friend, Dr. Asa Hilliard, who died in Egypt on August the 13th, 2007. So one of the ways that we honor our ancestors is to do what every culturally conscious people do, and that is to name projects, to name buildings, to name activities after them, so that by speaking their name, you bring them into existence. You keep their memory alive, their spirit alive. And so we are engaging in an African practice that has been practiced in the Nile Valley for over 6,000 years. It is a practice which has sustained us as African people as we have endured the worst atrocities that human beings have endured on this planet, but we are still here. We're still being inspired by these ancestors and doing the work that they would have us do.
And we don't want to keep you too long, Dr. Browder, but we just want to just go a little deeper into the project.
Sure.
What exactly does it entail? Like a person, most people don't know what excavating is. What do you, people on your team, what exactly are you doing with the tombs?
Sure. So let's think in terms of the engineering of this tomb. This tomb is carved out of the living limestone bedrock in the area known as South Assisi.
You said living?
Well, living is the living stone.
Oh,
it's stone, all right? And so that's the terminology that's used. And we're in an area known as South Assisi on the west bank of Luxor, Egypt. We are sandwiched between the Valley of the Kings to the north and the Valley of the Queens to the south. We're in an area that we've referred to as the Valley of the Ancestors. And so engineers dug 20 feet into the ground, dug out a staircase that extends, I'd say maybe at least 50 to 75 feet underground. That staircase terminates into a room where there are painted images on the wall. That room leads into an open air sun court, an atrium, if you will. And then on the western end of that sun court was a door, and then that door led to a pillared hall, a hall with 8 pillars, 3, 6, 9, 12. 6 pillars on one side, on the south side, 6 pillars on the north side, in which was carved text from the Book of the Hours. So we had 12 hours of the day on the north side, 12 hours of the night on the south side. And then on the walls, on either side of these pillars, we had text from the Book of Coming Forth by Day, the so-called Book of the Dead. And at the end of that room, there is another room, which is a 4-pillared hall. And in that room, we have text from additional text from the pyramid text, and on another, text from the Book of Coming Forth by Day, specific passages from the Book of Coming Forth by Day, and then on a wall on the northern side of that room, or the eastern side of that room, we have pyramid texts which were written 2,000 years earlier. And in front of that wall with pyramid text, we have another staircase which descends into the limestone another 10 feet. You go down another 10 feet below the floor of the tomb, and there's another room. And in the corner of that room, there is a shaft, 5 feet by 6 feet wide shaft. That shaft descends into the earth another 30 feet. And at the bottom of that shaft is the burial chamber for this priest, Karnak Temple. So this entire structure was literally carved out of the living limestone bedrock. So the creation of this tomb is not architecture, it's sculpture. It's sculpture where you remove the negative space and you leave behind pillars and floors and ceilings and walls. And every square inch of this tomb was covered with hieroglyphics, was covered with images of various natural images of this priest, Karnak Temple, and it was painted. So this tomb is an architectural marvel. And even though the contents of the tomb were stolen ages ago, what remains is a treasure trove of literary, architectural, scientific, and artistic knowledge that allows us to now place the 25th dynasty kings of Kemet into their rightful place in the pantheon of Kemetic history and culture.
Well, Dr. Browder, before we leave you, we want you to tell our viewers if they wanted to get involved with the project, what they would have to do such.
Sure. Well, we are, through the ACA Restoration Project, we are the first people of African ancestry in history to fund and participate in an archaeological excavation. We work in partnership with the Egyptian government, so this is an Egyptian American mission. And we work 4 months out of the year between April and September. And we take over volunteers who want to assist us in the mission, who want to help us with photography, registration of the artifacts that we found, and the entry of the data into our computer database. So if people are interested in joining us on our missions or interested in making a financial contribution to our work, we are a 501c3, so all contributions are tax deductible. They can go to our website, which is ikg-info.com. That's ikg-info.com. You'll see details about the ACA Restoration Project. You'll see photographs and videos of what we've done over the last 9 years. And our work has been acknowledged by the Egyptian government. Last year, September 24th of 2016, we opened the restored second pillared hall of Karnak tomb. The Minister of Antiquities, the Governor of Luxor, other Arab Egyptian officials, as well as legions of Egyptologists. Everyone was astounded at the quality of our restoration work. So we partnered with Dr. Lena Pistakova, a Russian-born, American-trained Egyptologist who discovered these tombs in 2006 and who ran out of funding 2 years into the project. And the African American community is responsible for unearthing and restoring the artifacts which have allowed us now to tell the story of African people who lived and died 2,700 years ago, and be able to connect their story with the story of African people throughout the Nile Valley. And I'll close on this note. Last September, when I was in Egypt for the opening, I found in 2 other 25th dynasty tombs a Sankofa symbol, right? A Sankofa symbol. Now, what that means, right? We're still doing some research on this, but essentially what that means is that Sankofa symbols, African Americans and West Africans identify Sankofa as an Adinkra symbol that is part of the culture of the Akan in Ghana, West Africa. Adinkra symbols are symbols that were created 200 to 300 years ago, symbols associated with the dead, symbols that were used to honor and to remember ancestors. So what I found painted on the ceiling of 2 25th dynasty tombs in an area near where we're working, what I believe to be the prototype of the Sankofa symbol. And this evidence also speaks to stories in West African culture, specifically Ghana, Senegal, Nigeria, and Mali, as well as the Cameroon, of their ancestors having migrated to the Niger River area in West Africa from the Nile River Valley in East Africa. So we've got the historical evidence, and we're going to be doing some more research this summer over in Egypt to find additional evidence, and we'll be sharing this information with the community before the end of the year.
Dr. Anthony Browder, we thank you very much for joining us. We wish you tremendous luck.
Well, luck has nothing to do with it, brother.
Success, I should say.
Success, thank you very much. I interpret luck as living under controlled karma, and we spoke earlier about karma. Karma is cause and effect. And what I've learned over the years is conscious human beings create the events in their life, which determines the trajectory of their lives, which others may refer to as luck. But what it is the application of knowledge which ensures that you are able to accomplish those things that you set out to accomplish.
Never a dull moment with Dr. Browder. He's always dropping some extra wisdom. Family, we thank you very much for joining us. I'm Dashawn Farad, and please don't forget to subscribe to yourblackworld.net. See you next time.
I am Anthony Browder, author of From the Browder File 1 and 2, Now Valley Contributions to Civilization, co-author of 2 books with my daughter, My First Trip to Africa and Africa on My Mind. I'm director of IKG here in Washington, D.C., and also the director of the ACA Restoration Project, where we are funding and participating in the first archaeological excavation in Egypt that is funded by African American dollars. So I encourage you all to go to our website, ikg-info.com, to read our books and continue to watch Your Black World to get the knowledge necessary in order for us to restore our black world to its rightful place and liberate the minds, the souls, and the spirits of African people.